The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of our guests and panel members and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any institution any member of the Nova Society is associated with. The material information presented on the Nova Society is for general information purposes only. Reproduction or dissemination for the purpose other than education is prohibited without express written consent of the Nova Society. We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society, and today Brooklynn asked us to take a look at Project 2025. So this will be a cursory look at 2025 because the text is well over 900 pages long. But this is one of the platforms of the Republican Party that now they are trying to distance themselves from. So we're going to look at Kevin Roberts, who was the president of the Heritage Foundation and one of the authors of Project 2025, what the general gist of this document is, and what the impact could be for not only America, but the upcoming election. So let's listen in.
Yeah, well, so, it's important to have some banter, so now we're bantering.
Yeah.
All right, well, I mean, we can banter about baseball. Look, anybody who says that I'm a overly optimistic Met fan, I've been there, I've done that. I know. Okay. I expect them to rip my heart out and dance all over it like they have so many times before. And because of that, I want to be able to enjoy it when I can enjoy it. And I'm enjoying it right now.
I still remember Bartolo's home run.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that you never saw that picture ever again. He after that he was done. It wasn't Sale. It was who did he hit it off of?
I don't remember.
He was really, really good. And then after that, I think,
was it Johnny Cueto?
No. No. So you want to do this 2025 thing. All right. I did not get the chance to read your last email.
No worries. It's just about Kevin Roberts and where he got his PhD and how and he wound up with being in charge of the Heritage Foundation.
So where did he get his PhD from?
He went he earned his PhD from the University of Texas. And so apparently he taught at the collegiate level.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
I don't know which campus.
Yeah, I mean, none of these guys are, well, I shouldn't say none, but some of these guys aren't dummies. No. And, they know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. Donald Trump can try to distance himself for it. As he has said, you have to get elected first. He has no compunction about lying to the American people if it'll help him get elected, and then he can just go ahead and do whatever he wants to do, whatever he plans to do, and that's Project 2025.
So a lot of the wording in that is very interesting in the forward, the choices that Kevin Roberts made.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it seems to me that there's a dire pessimism at the heart of this. And that these are people who think that things are going horribly wrong. And I just don't feel that. I don't understand where they're coming from. And I have friends who seem to think the same thing. And they're like, all the country's in such terrible shape. I'm like, really? The country's, we have put distance between ourselves economically, between ourselves and China, which was always a big fear recently, the same way that it had been about Japan rather, in the 80s. And we're talking, and we've actually put some distance between us and them from an economic standpoint. We've strengthened NATO, which is the greatest alliance, military alliance ever. We have alliances in the Pacific with key allies there. And, someday we may even be able to start looking at Central and South America and even Africa as places where we want to be more involved because there's going to be benefits for doing that. And, it just seems to me that everything is looking in the right direction. We're moving forward well. we're denying our adversaries the tools they need to defeat us, and we're developing them ourselves here. Like, what part of this is horrible?
Well, one thing that Robert said, and I don't remember what page number it's on, which is one reason why, as I was saying, reading it aloud and showing the page numbers as Mark was, and the text as Mark was suggesting, is important. Roberts was complaining that the United States is ceding the globalists, the globalist elites or something, or ceding power to the supranational entities like the United Nations and the European Union, which I thought was interesting that he was including the European Union in this, and allowing them to have power over signing treaties that would never pass the U.S. Congress. So we're apparently, or the government apparently, and then at a later point in the foreword, Kevin Roberts says that there is no such thing as the government. Anyway, we're apparently the heads of state of the United States are ceding power to a supranational entity like the United Nations, and giving away the United States and giving away our power.
That's ridiculous. All right. So,
I know.
One of the listeners who knows me personally wrote in and said, Mark, you're very neutral, and you very rarely say what you think, as far as, being controversial in this and that. And they're right. Sometimes I do try to temper my statement, but here I'm going to not. That's the stupidest damn thing I've ever heard in my entire life. The United States has been a global participant since its beginning. We fully understood that we had to engage the rest of the global community. We backed Spain when it was fighting against England back in the early 19th century. We got involved in World War I. We got involved in World War II. Now, do we get involved in these things because we want to? No, because we know that they are for our best interests. And that's just the way it is. The United States, somebody that says to me, well, we could be totally self-sufficient. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Could we be logistically self-sufficient? Pretty much. But then again, if you're going to be self-sufficient, get ready, because most of the commodities that you get now, that you don't import in from countries that have lower labor standards than we do, get ready to pay probably 5 times more for all of that stuff. This is a case of not thinking things through and trying to make people believe that there is a boogeyman that does not exist. We do not defer to the United Nations. We do not defer to the International Criminal Court. We do not defer to NATO. We do not defer to anyone. We lead these groups. We lead, except the International Criminal Court, who we won't deal with, period, because we are so Star-Spangled Banner great, we think that we're above that. And the fact is that this idea of a friend of mine said, well, you're a globalist and internationalist. Yes, I am. Because I understand that to survive in today's world, you had better be interested in what's happening outside your front door. Because if you're not paying attention, kind of like that's why World War II happened. People weren't paying attention. And the fact that people just continually say that globalism is so bad. Okay, you want to have globalism? Don't buy from China. See how that works out for you. Check that one out. Don't send your goods to other countries. See how that works out. But no, what we want is we want to be able to send our goods. We don't want to have to take in any other goods. We want it all our own way. Sort of like a 5-year-old. I want it my way, and I want it now. What was it, J.G. Wentworth? It's my money, and I want it now. I mean, come on, people. Get your head out of your ass. This is not the way this stuff works. Ed,
Yeah.
I think I ranted enough on that one.
Oh, that's great. It's important. And I mean, why drag the European Union into that? I don't know what, I mean, there's a lot of disingenuous stuff in what Roberts has shared, as I shared with you, and I only got through page 1 of what I shared with you. And my thoughts on page 1. And there are 16 pages of that running on to page 17, and we haven't even gotten to the rest of the 900 odd pages. So, yeah.
I'm gonna have to confess here that I'm not reading this entire document. I've kind of cherry picked a little bit through it, and it's as insane as you would think it is, and it's like it's all this nonsense about all that the woke agenda is going to get us and all that. It's just one crazy thing after another. So I'm not playing. I'm not playing along.
And I will admit, I will not read it either.
But people should be aware of it because it is a really, really dangerous thing. And as I've noted before here, we are they are staffing it. And the part of this that is the worst part, I think, for the United States of America is that they think it's okay to fire every public employee, every federal employee, every bureaucrat who's been sitting in the same job for 20 years or whatever, fire those people and hire people instead who will do whatever Trump wants them to do. And that is a really scary thing. So I think we talked about this already. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, this 2025 eliminates that. Many of its functions eliminated, sent to other agencies, privatized, or placed under control of states and territories. And this is, supposedly to save $6.6 billion budget that NOAA has in funding for projecting hurricanes and looking at sunspots and making sure that we know what the weather is going to be doing here, and largely seems to be driven by the idea that NOAA didn't listen to Trump when Trump made a mistake, just a simple mistake. He said that a hurricane was going to hit Alabama, and it wasn't projected to do that, and they corrected him. And rather than just saying, "Oh, I misspoke," he went on this rant and actually took one of their weather maps and drew in with his Sharpie a bubble that would cause it to hit Alabama, and said, "See, I showed you. I told you this is what it is." That is what he plans to do with everything that the federal government does, to simply ignore the reality and make it conform to what he wants it to conform to. And he's the first and the last word on this. So the Marine Mammal Protection Project, gone. Eliminating monuments and national parks, they'll all be gone. The a whole Medicaid, gone. A whole bunch of things that have helped people in this country for decades will be gone. He wants to. Here, how about this one? Apparently on page 637 of this 900-page document, he wants to militarize the merchant marines, move them out of the maritime administration, and which is part of the Department of Transportation, and put them into the Department of Defense. I mean, the merchant marines have been around for 250 years or something like that.
Yeah.
These are the guys who transport cargo and operate the tugboats and the towboats and ferries and all that kind of stuff, and charter boats in the Great Lakes and in the oceans. And they move military personnel from one place to another, but they are an independent agency. but he wants to militarize them.
Yeah. And if you want your weather report, forget about the Weather Channel. We'll just have Trump and his Sharpie drawing happy faces over all the red states and sad faces with horns over all the blue states, and you'll know where and he'll tell you that he's going to direct all the bad weather to the unhappy faced Sharpie drawn. It's just stupid. And it amazes me how many times people that really support this stuff will tie themselves into pretzels to try to, in some way, legitimize some of the stuff that you're hearing. I mean, it truly is. I totally agree with Scott. I will not read this. It is a complete waste of time. I don't care where such and such got their doctorate from. I really don't care. Just because you have a doctorate does not mean that you have any, that means you were able to jump the hoops necessary to get the education. But that it doesn't make you any smarter in most cases, as is obvious by this 2025 thing. It's Roberts, who was and we were just talking about this before we came on, Roberts, who was a former educator and cultural warrior. Okay, whatever. I'm an educator, and my job is to help teach my students how to think, not what to think. And that's the way it's supposed to be. This guy was the president of the Wyoming Catholic College. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of Catholics in Wyoming, probably, a real whole ton of them there. We're not talking Yale or Harvard or Princeton here. So again, 2025, people should be aware of it. There are certain things that people really ought to pay attention to. And unless you're willing to read it, you probably need to listen to people who didn't write it and their evaluation, as opposed to the people that did write it, who are going to try to frame it that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. Yep. And apparently the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote, also needs to be repealed. And then one of the pages in the foreword, I don't remember which page it is.
Does it actually say that?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far.
We probably ought to check that one out. Because if it says that, come on. Yeah, I mean, if it really does say that.
That's why I want to read through the whole thing. And I want to read it aloud, because I think, various of our listeners may be interested in various parts of this, various sections of this, and they might want to know what various sections say, rather than hearing what analysts say the sections say. And see the words for themselves, but they may, or listen to the words for themselves, but they may not want to read the whole thing. So that way they can cherry pick whatever section they want to listen to.
So we should make that offer. Anybody out there wants to, get a specific part of this that we'll be more than willing to look at, and tell you what we think. We'll do that. Just send us an email.
That's right.
Yep.
Good idea.
Yep. Well, and part of the foreword, what does it say here? Roberts talks about transgenderism, and talks about, which I'm not really clear as a word. He talks about radical chic, and the Great Awakening.
I think the other thing you got to always realize, if somebody needs to make up a word to describe something, it probably isn't legitimate. So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of Nova Works, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, who is our editing partner, and Podkite, who does all of our analytics. We'd also like to thank iHeartRadio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source for music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all these and other quality platforms mentioned in our description. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, a question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershwer, Dr. Brooklynn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.